Minister Tracey Martin says she's meeting with Commission members tomorrow, and in the meantime she has sought urgent advice on what powers she has.
I have been provided with the section of the law around should a commissioner need to be removed and what the law says about that. I'm still waiting on advice around my role. And if any, should that be the case, should we need to move down that pathway? But at the end of the day, the Governor-General is the only person who can remove a commissioner from the Royal Commission of Inquiry. And the other thing that has happened is that the Royal Commission has been in contact with my officers today and has asked to meet with me, so we are moving forward to set up that appointment.
Do you think the Commissioner needs to go?
It wouldn't be constructive for me to say what I thought about that, to be perfectly frank. At this stage, I only have what is reported in the media. So I'm very much looking forward to meeting with the Royal Commission, having them explain to me, and they've offered to do that. Let's remember they don't have to. So I'm very much looking forward to meeting with them and hearing from them in the first person. How did this come about? How could this be avoided? And how can they rebuild or regain or rework the trust that their survivor community needs to make the Royal Commission of Inquiry a success?
But you wouldn't be investigating your powers if you weren't investigating whether you needed to exercise them, would you?
I want to be fully informed. So I like to be fully informed, and I know what the law is, but I don't know my role in it. So I want to make sure that I know what my role is, so that if there is a place where action needs to be taken by the Governor-General, and at this stage I have a cursory understanding that I can only recommend after it's gone through Cabinet, I want to make sure I'm fully informed around that as this this continues to evolve.
So, will you meet with the Commission and then make a recommendation to Cabinet?
I will meet with the Commission and have a face-to-face conversation with them about how did this happen, how could this have been avoided, are some of the other statements inside the media correct, which cause concern. I think there's a question that's been raised in the media around police vetting. So I want to hear from them in the first person, seeing as they've offered to make themselves, to meet with me. But that doesn't mean that I will then be taking next steps. The law sets a very high threshold for the Governor-General to take any action. So I can't say what my next steps will be until I meet with the Commission.
Would you have expected vetting of the victim advisory group?
Well, and I do understand, actually, the Commissioner who has said that one of the reasons they didn't vet the Victims Advisory Group was because many victims, after incredibly traumatic lives, did go on and have a criminal record. So I do understand that. I think in hindsight, and again, I'm not part of the operational, in hindsight, there are obviously certain crimes it might have been very smart to screen people for. But I also want to make this clear. The person in question is not a member of the survivor panel. So they are not a member of the actual panel. They are a support person to a member of the panel. So I guess what would have been, this is the bit that I need to go through with the Commission. How far out did they think about? What police vetting did they do? And how far back did they think they should go, considering people were going to be in contact with each other?
What level of confidence do you have in the Commission right now?
I'd have to say right now my confidence is very shaken.
How badly so?
I'm very much looking forward to meeting with them face to face.
And when is that going to happen?
My understanding is we're trying to get that together for tomorrow.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, Minister, 10 being complete confidence and, 0, none, where are you on this scale?
At the moment, I'm around about a 5. I'm teetering.
And what's making you teeter? Specifically?
I need to know from them. I need to hear from them specifically, rather than rely on media reports and Simon Bridges' tweets. I need to hear from them specifically. How did this come about? What actions did they take? How are they going to rebuild confidence? I need to hear from them specifically.
What would make you go to the Governor-General, go to Cabinet first and go to the Governor-General and say, I think the Commissioner needs to be removed? What is it that you would hear?
Yeah. There's only three reasons that the Governor-General can remove an individual commissioner. So the law states that the Governor-General can remove an individual commissioner due to 1, misconduct, 2, if they were unable to perform the functions of their office, or 3, if they had neglected their duty. Now, that's the other piece of advice that's part of the advice I'm asking for Internal Affairs to give to me. What are the thresholds around that? I need to have the conversation with the Royal Commission, and then I need to match those conversations and information from them up against the thresholds that Internal Affairs is going to present. And then I'm going to have to look at both of those things and see whether we have a situation that I might need to move forward on.
Would it be fair to say the area of focus in those 3 things that you've just listed is potentially neglect of duty?
I think if only based on the media reports that I have seen, I would suggest that of the 3 reasons that a commissioner could be removed, that would be the one I think would be the closest to a fit. But again, I haven't spoken directly to the commissioners.
Is it the surprise factor here that is concerning you, that you don't find out until you hear it on the news media about what's going on? Or can you not have a victim advisor in a group where they have a partner or a close associate who's committed a serious sexual assault?
With regard to the surprise factor, the Royal Commission, the Independent Royal Commission of Inquiry, is not required to tell me anything. So it's a surprise factor because I'm as shocked and upset for the survivors as I think most people are. So that's what that response is. With regard to the second part of your question, I need to hear from the commissioners what was their thought process here, what were the actual actions they took, because standing here on the outside, I don't think my view is that different from most of the people that have been reported in the media.
Okay, I'm still not clear on that, Minister, in the sense, is it possible for a person to be on the victim advisory group and have a partner who's committed a serious sexual assault as long as measures are taken to keep that person away from the advisory group?
Well, if a victim is a victim and they have a partner who is, so they're on the survivors advisory panel, and let's say they have a husband who has been convicted of a serious offence and is now been released by the justice system but with conditions applied, and that husband comes nowhere near the inquiry and other people, I don't know that we could make that condition on that survivor, that survivor themselves can no longer be listened to or can no longer participate because of who they married. I'm not confident that that's something we should be saying. What we're talking about here is basically who knew what and when, and why did they think it was appropriate, if they did, that person was close to people who had suffered such trauma.
And that's Tracey Martin, who's the Minister responsible for the Royal Commission of Inquiry. After 6, we hear from a survivor who was unknowingly in meetings with the convicted child sex offender. And he says someone has to go for trust to be restored in the inquiry.